The 9/11 terror attacks changed many things in the United States, including how the country handles its national security. Following September 11th, new safeguards were put in place to protect mass transit and large gatherings. Coordination between law enforcement and the intelligence community was enhanced to prevent potential attacks. And several new government offices were created, including the National Counterterrorism Center, the Transportation Security Administration, and the Department of Homeland Security. For more, let's bring in John Cohen. He is the acting Undersecretary of Intelligence and Analysis for the Department of Homeland Security and the department's coordinator for counterterrorism. Thank you for being here, Undersecretary. So your department was created in response to the 9/11 attacks. What are the chances of another major attack like 9/11 being carried out here in the United States?
Well, Lana, thanks for having me on. The fact is we've made extensive investments over the last 20 years, and the likelihood that a foreign terrorist organization could introduce terrorist operatives into the United States and carry out an attack similar to 9/11 have been diminished greatly. Our intelligence collection capabilities are improved. Our partnership with our foreign partners and allies is dramatically improved. As you pointed out, the information sharing between the intelligence community and law enforcement agencies has dramatically improved. We've conducted military and intelligence operations around the world that dismantled the organization that conducted the 9/11 attacks. And it's much harder today for foreign terrorist groups to operate the way they did prior to September 11th, 2001. The challenge we face, though, is that over that same 20-year period, is that the terrorist threat facing the United States has evolved. Terrorist groups abroad are operating differently. They're using different communication techniques. They've become more sophisticated using online, and we're dealing with domestic terror threats as well.
I wanted to ask you about that, how the threat has changed between domestic and foreign terrorism, and also with Afghanistan now being back under Taliban control, how concerned are you that Afghanistan could once again become a safe haven for terrorists?
Well, clearly that's an issue that we will track. We will continue to monitor events in Afghanistan and work closely with the intelligence community and again with our foreign partners to track whether it does in fact become a safe haven and a base of operation for recruitment, training, and deployment of terrorist assets. But the threat we face on 9/11 primarily came from organized groups that operated overseas. And they recruited attackers, they trained them, they deployed them, they resourced them, and they controlled them. Today, the threat's very different in the sense that the primary terrorism threat facing the United States today comes from individuals or small groups of individuals who self-connect with the ideological beliefs of a terrorist group, but operate independent of those groups. So they're inspired by what they see online. They go out and commit a mass casualty attack on behalf of the terrorist group's ideology, but they do not communicate, they do not collaborate, and they do not operate with others from that terrorist group. So it's a very different type of threat, and it's much more difficult for law enforcement and intelligence community assets to be leveraged in order to detect those types of threats.
Well, there's now more than 51,000 Afghan refugees here in the United States. Are you concerned that extremists might try to take advantage of the compressed vetting process for special immigrant visas? What is the Department of Homeland Security doing on that front?
The Department of Homeland Security, specifically Customs and Border Protection, we're working closely with the intelligence community, with the FBI, with state and local law enforcement to make sure that we acquire biographic and biometric information from those seeking to travel here. We're vetting them against a broad range of classified and unclassified information. That vetting continues throughout the process. We've developed and established extensive operational protocols for what we will do should derogatory information or information that causes us concern about an individual possibly posing a risk to the United States. Most of that vetting occurs overseas, but we've also established procedures should someone come to the United States and then we ultimately find information of concern. We have extensive processes in place to address that as well.
And then on the other side, earlier this week, your office warned law enforcement agencies about the possibility of domestic violent extremists targeting Afghan refugees or even unrelated refugee communities. Has your office seen anything specific to warrant this concern, and what's your message on this front?
Well, broadly, and I think your question sort of illustrates the complexity of the threat environment we're dealing with today. So not only do we have to be concerned about terrorists coming into the United States from abroad, but over the past several years, the majority of lethal attacks conducted in the United States have been by individuals who are inspired by white supremacist or anti-government ideological beliefs. So while, as we continue our efforts to detect threats, we have seen a pattern of anti-immigrant and anti, and feelings of hatred directed at communities because of their race, their ethnicity, their immigrant status, or even the faith that they practice. So, we are concerned that just as we have experienced attacks against houses of worship and locations selected because it was believed that they were locations where immigrants were gathering. We are evaluating the domestic terror threat environment from the perspective of could there be directed attacks at those being relocated here. We do not have any specific or credible information yet, but it's something that we're definitely staying on top of, along with the FBI and our state and local law enforcement partners.
Really appreciate that. Important also to note that many of those Afghan refugees are here because they supported our troops abroad. John Cohen, thank you so much.
Thank you.